Bismillah. In this section, Shabab, we will study the double angle formulas and the half angle formulas, what they are and how to use them to evaluate expressions involving inverse trigonometric functions, and also how to prove identities. So I can see, Shabab, that you can understand from the double angle and the half angle. Double angle, it means double something. Half angle, it means something like this. Okay. So let me ask you this question. Is sine 2x, this is sine of the double of the angle. So the angle here, it is the double. Is it equals to sine x? What do you think? The same question for cosine.
No. No, they are not.
They are not, of course. You can check by using any angle, Shabab. It is not. So this is not correct. So the question is now, what is cosine to x? What is cosine to x? What is cosine to x? The same question now. So indeed, they depend on 7.3. Do you 7.2? Do you remember what is 7.2? It was about the addition and subtraction formula. What is the addition formula for sine, Shabab? Who can remind me? What is sine x plus y?
Sine cosine
Sine x
plus
cosine y plus sine y cosine x. Is that right? Now, to find sine 2x, you know what is sine 2x. Sine 2x is what? It is sine x plus x. What is sine x plus x? It is sine what? 2x. So just use the same one, but instead of y, but x. So it will be what? Sine x cosine x plus sine x cosine x. Sine x cosine x plus sine x cosine x. You have the same thing plus the same thing. So you have 1 real plus 1 real. So it is 2 reals. 2 cosine x. So this is the formula that we are looking for. The double angle formula. The same can be applied for cosine. So these are the double angle formulas. From where they are coming, Shabab? They are coming from where? 7.2, from the addition formulas. From the addition formulas for sine, cosine, and tan. So here we are. This is just coming from sine x plus x. If you forget it, you can recall it from there. This one is the same. This one is the same. You remember what is tan x plus y? It is just tan x plus tan y. Now, when you have this x, this will be tan 2x, and you will have tan x plus tan x, it will be 2 tan x. And here we are. And of course, you can just apply the formula, if you remember, Shabab, the remaining of the formula. What I'd like to focus on is this one. Now, how to recall this, Shabab? You need to write them down. You need to use them in several exercises many times until you master it, okay? Now, cosine to x, cosine the double of the angle, it is cosine squared minus sine squared. It is so easy. From where to obtain it, Shabab, again? You can obtain it from the addition formula for cosine. So cosine to x, it is cosine x plus x, which is what? Cosine x minus sine x sine x. Now this will be cosine squared, this will be sine squared. Now in many situations, ya shabab, we need this. Here it is the same, cosine to x. So cosine to x is 1 minus sine squared x. It is also 2 cosine squared minus x. How we obtain this? From where? In many situations, and you need to write it in terms of sine only or in terms of cosine only. How to do that? Just here, what you want, for example, you don't want it in terms of cosine, you want it in terms of sine. You will use the Pythagorean identity. You remember, Shabab, what is cosine squared? It is 1 minus sine squared. Minus sine squared. Now simplify. Negative sine squared. The negative sine squared, it will be negative 2 sine squared. Add to 1, it will be 1 minus 2 sine squared. If you want it in terms of cosine, like here, not in terms of sign. What you will do, you will replace this by using the Pythagorean identity. Sine squared, it is 1 minus cosine squared. But write it inside two brackets because here you have subtraction. Don't forget that. So it will be cosine squared minus 1. This is minus 1. And this will be negative times negative. It will be positive. Cosine squared plus cosine squared, it will be positive 2 cosine squared. Excellent. Now let's apply this, ya shabab, for this one. We have here cosine x equals to negative 2 over 3. X is in the second quadrant. Find cosine to x and sine to x. Let's recall, ya shabab, what is cosine to x? Cosine to x, we have three formulas for cosine to x. The first formula is what? Cosine squared x minus sine squared x. The second formula is 1 minus 2 sine squared x when we replace cosine squared by 1 minus sine squared. The third one, it is 2 cosine squared x minus 1. What do you think here? Which one is easier to be used? طبعا you can use any one of them. It is correct. It is not about which one is true, which one is false. It is about which one will make the solution faster, they make the solution shorter and easier. Please, anyone? Which one, ya shabab, here is better to be used? Use your mind. Think, ya shabab. Wake up. Which one is easier to be used?
The third one?
Yes, Abdul Hamid, you are right. Why?
Because I have cosine.
Yes, because, ya shabab, what do you have here? What is given for you? Cosine. So what you will do, you will just substitute. So just you will say cosine to x, it is 2 cosine squared x minus 1. Just both what you have. Cosine is negative 2 over 10. So you don't need to think about the quadrant. You need to think about anything. You don't need to find sine. So to find what is cosine to x, just you need cosine x. And the difference that here, this is cosine to x, this is cosine x. This is why, ya shabab, it is important when you write cosine, you have to write cosine what? So because you may have cosine x, you have cosine to x, because it is very bad habit, ya shabab, to write sine or cosine without the angle. Just it is a matter of substitution. So be smart, ya shabab. This is why I always tell you in the quizzes, solve smartly. Think simply and solve smartly. Now, for sine to x, we have only one formula. We know that sine to x, it is 2 sine x cosine x. Here we are. I have this. It is given for me. What I need to find sine x. How to find sine x, ya shabab? You can do it in several ways. You can use the triangle. Where is the triangle? Is in the second. So this will be, this is why I don't like to use triangle here, ya shabab, because some of you, they get confused. When we use x as an angle and this is x-axis, this is something confuse you. So don't use the triangle when you have this type of x unless you are so careful. So you can use this. And of course, this is cosine. Cosine, the hypotenuse is 3, this is negative 2, and this will be the square root of 9 plus minus 4, it will be 5, square root of 5. I don't prefer this one here, shabab. What I prefer here is to use the Pythagorean identity. You have cosine, and you know that sine squared x is 1 minus cosine squared x. So sine x will be positive or negative, the square root of 1 minus cosine squared x. Now, positive or negative, sine is positive or negative. Where is x? X is in the second quadrant. So what we will use, positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So this means that we will say that sine x is positive square root of 1 minus. We have cosine, square it, simplify. Why we choose the positive? Because of course sine x is positive in the second quadrant. And you have the same answer, by the way. The same answer if you use the triangle, but you have to be careful about the positive and the negative signs. Great. Now you have sine x, you have cosine x, just multiply them by 2. That's it. This is sine 2x. Notice, ya shabab, here something that I want you to notice. Let me ask you this question. In which quadrant 2x is? In which quadrant? We know that x is in the second. So where is 2x here in this case?
ايش دكتور؟ ما سمعت السؤال.
Where is the angle 2x? In which quadrant?
2x is in the third or the fourth?
In the third, you are right. Why?
Negative. It's because opposite of the hypotenuse. And the opposite
Which
is
negative? The sign of this angle is what? Negative. Will cosine? Command negative. It is in the third. Great. Write cosine 3x in terms of cosine x. This is a very interesting question, Shabab. It is a question from the old exam. But how they bring it in the old exams, I will show you how they brought this in the old exams. Now, how to write cosine 3x? We know what is cosine. We know what is cosine 2x. But what about when you have 3? Is it going to be the same? No. This is something you have to think about it from the beginning. So the trick here is to use cosine 3x as what? As cosine 2x plus x. 3x, it is 2x plus x. We know that. Now we will use the addition formula for cosine 7.2, ya shabab. So the addition formula is what? Cosine the first, cosine the second, minus sine the first, sine the second. This is the addition formula for what? For cosine. Now we need to use, ya shabab, the double angle formulas. For this, we need 7.3, the double angle formulas. How to use the double angle formulas here? For this one, it is so easy. For this one, we have only one formula, 2 sine x cosine x. Now for this one, you have to be careful because you have three ones. You can use any one of them. It is correct. But it is about, are you going to solve it quickly in a quick time, in short time, or you will spend a lot of time to get what you want. So focus on your target. What is our target, ya shabab? To write it in terms of what? In terms of cosine x. So this means that at the end, the final answer should contain cosine x plus something minus something cosine x. It is all about cosine, not sine. Okay? And not any cosine, cosine x, not cosine 2x. If it is cosine 2x, it is not correct. We want it in terms of cosine x. So what do you think now? From these three formulas, which one is better to be used for this? Anyone? Which one is?
2 cosine squared minus 1.
The third one, yes, 2 cosine. Why? Because we want it to be like that at the end. So this is what we are going to do, ya shabab. We will just replace cosine 2x by 2 cosine squared x minus 1, and this one, of course, by 2 cosine. Now simplify, expand. This will be 2 cosine squared multiplied by cosine, negative 1 multiplied by cosine, 2 sine squared cosine. Just a matter of multiplying or expanding. Now, are we done, ya shabab? Is this in terms of cosine? No, because we still have what here? Sine squared. So how to get rid of this, ya shabab? We will use what? Please, ya shabab, wake up. Okay, if you didn't wake up, I will start, ya shabab, asking now. Yes.
Doctor,
Yes.
first formula?
No.
Second,
No, sine squared. What is sine squared x? We want this to be in terms of what? To be in terms of what? Of cosine. You don't know how to write sine squared in terms of cosine?
1 minus
No,
cosine.
1 minus cosine squared.
Yeah, shabab, yes. This is called the Pythagorean identity. Just say the Pythagorean identity and I will understand what you mean. So sine squared is just 1 minus cosine squared. Just like that. Now expand again. Don't forget that you have negative sign. So it will be equals to what? Negative 2 cosine, negative times negative is positive, 2 cosine cubed. Now it is a matter of what? combining the like terms. You have here 2 cosine cubed, 2 cosine cubed. You have negative cosine, negative 2 cosine. So this will be 2 reals plus 2 reals, it will be 4 reals, and this will be negative 1 real, negative 2 reals, it will be negative 3 reals. Now, this is what we have, ya shabab. This is cosine 3x. Cosine 3x is 4 cosine cubed x minus 3 cosine x in terms of cosine. How they shabab bought this in the old exams? They said if cosine 3x equals to a plus b, what is a plus b? And that's it. You need to do all of this to be able to determine what is it. They can ask you the same for sine. They can, of course, change, of course, this to be in terms of sine, not in terms of cosine, if it is possible, and so on. But the idea should be clear. Please, ya shabab, participate, try to understand what we are doing. Okay, now the another way, shabab, or the another applications for these identities is to prove identities. For the double angle formula, you can use them to prove other identities. Now, how to prove that the left hand side equals to the right hand side? How to do that? You should start with one, the left one or the right one. You should start with the one that is complicated. You can do something about it. Look here, if you start with this side, how can you go from x to 3x? It cannot be easier. The argument here, the angle itself. But for sine 3x, you can write it as we did for cosine 3x. So we will start with the left hand side. This is the left hand side. So here we have sine 3x over sine x cosine x. What we will do, we will just put sine 3x to as what? As sine x plus 2x. And here we will use the addition formula from 7.2. So this is the addition formula for sine. It is sine the first, cosine the second, plus cosine the first, sine the second. Now, what you can do, you will go now to 7.3. You will use the double angle formulas here. Here they are. This one is clear. We have only one formula for it. Now here we need to be smart and choose one of these formulas. Again, what do you think? Which one here is better? Look at the target. What is your target at the end? You want this to be in terms of what? Cosine. What is secant? Secant, it is 1 over cosine. So we want this at the end to be only in terms of cosine. So for the same reason, we will use also the same one that we used before. If the question was about in terms of secant, cosecant, you have to use the second one, and so on. So this will make it, shabab, easier and shorter if you use the third one. This is not in general, طبعا. This is just for these specific examples. Now, expand. It is a matter of expanding and distribute. Here we have two denominators. So you can say that this, all of this over this, and plus all of the other denominator over the same common denominator. Now here we have a cancellation, shabab. You will expand. This will be cancelled with this. And this will be cancelled with this. And this one also, sine x, will be cancelled with this one. All of them are factors. What we left up with, yes, shabab? We left up with 2 cosine squared x minus 1 over cosine plus 2 cosine. Again here, distribute, separate. It will be 2 cosine squared over cosine. This will be gone with this, and you will have 2 cosine x minus 1 over cosine, which is secant. You have 2 cosine plus 2 cosine. It will be 4 cosine minus secant. And this is the right hand side. We are done. We showed that the left hand side equals to the right hand side. Is it clear, shabab? Any questions, please?
Clear, doctor.
Okay. Let's now, ya shabab, go to another kind of formulas that they are called lowering powers formulas. Indeed, they are not new. They are coming from the double angle formula. How? I will show you here. We know, ya shabab, that cosine to x is 1 minus 2 sine squared x. The double angle formula. Now solve this one for sine squared. What you can do? move this to the other side, add it to both sides. What you'll have? You'll have 2 sine squared x equals to 1 minus, move this to here, cosine to x. Now do divide by 2. It will be 1 minus cosine to x over 2. Here it is. What we have here, Shabab, is a new formula for sine squared. We know from before, from the Pythagorean identity, that sine squared is 1 minus cosine squared x. This is the Pythagorean identity, Shabab. Now we have here another formula, this formula, sine squared equals to cosine squared x equals to 1 minus cosine to x over 2. This one, it is called the lowering power formula. The lowering power formula. Now, what is the difference, ya Shabab, between these two formulas? Please have a look at this and have a look at this and compare between them. Here, the power is still squared. We didn't lower the power. Okay? The power is still the same. The angle is still the same. Okay? Here, this is just use this one if you want to find cosine in terms of sine or sine in terms of cosine. But here, look, the power here is 2, but the power here is 1. The angle here is x, here it is the double. So when we use this identity, this formula, when we use it when we want just to lower the power. The question that you may ask, when we need to lower the power? You will need it, of course, in several situations. One of the most important cases is in math 102. In math 102, you will be able to find the integral of this one. You cannot find this integral unless you use this identity. So what you will put instead of sine squared, you will put 1 minus cosine to x over 2. And after that, you can proceed. You can continue integrating. Okay? I'm talking about the التكاملات يا شباب. عشان تجيب هذا التكامل, you have to use this formula. You will see that inshallah soon next year when you start studying math 101 and math 102. طبعا the same idea يا شباب can be used for cosine. This formula. Cosine you know that cosine, the double of the angle, is 2 cosine squared minus 1. Now move 1 to here, then divide by 2. You have this. Notice, ya Shabab, that these formulas are both in terms of cosine of the double of the angle. In the case of sine squared, it is negative. In the case of cosine squared, it is positive. For tangent squared x, just divide sine squared by cosine squared, because you know that tan is the sine over cosine. The 2 will be cancelled with 2. Let's take an example about this. Express sine squared, please. Express sine squared, cosine squared x in terms of the first power of cosine. Why it is all about cosine? Okay, so now what we have, ya Shabab, we have this. We have sine squared cosine squared x. We need to write it in terms of first power of cosine. What does that mean? It is cosine to the power 1. Whatever the angle here, it doesn't matter. So they didn't say cosine x or cosine to x. Cosine whatever. What is important that the power is 1. Let's see that together. But I think, ya Shabab, you know what is sine squared, what is cosine squared. So it is natural to think about this. You, instead of sine squared, you will put this. Instead of cosine squared, you will put this. Here we are. Now, is this in terms of the first power of cosine? This side. Is it now in terms of cosine with the first power? For this part, yes, it is cosine, but it is not of the first power, Shabab. Why? Because if you multiply, it will be like this. If you expand, of course, this 2 times 2 is 4. 1 minus cosine times 1 plus cosine, it is 1 minus cosine squared. So we still have a second power, not the first power. So distribute now, it will be 1 over 4 minus 1 over 4 cosine squared. So look here, Shabab, what we have. 1 minus 4 or minus 1 over 4 cosine squared is equals to this. Now, what is our target, يا شباب? We did write this in terms of cosine, but unfortunately, it is not of the first power. So how to make it of the first power, يا شباب? How to make this of the first power? We need to lower this power from 2 to 1. How to do that? How to do that? How to get rid of this? Yes, ya Walid.
No, I just thought logarithm. No, not really.
Muhammad Al-Mu'taq, ya Muhammad, are you here?
Yes.
How to do this, ya Muhammad? I need what we are talking about, ya Shabab, please. Where are you, ya Muhammad? Especially you, ya Muhammad. Yani, I expect from you to be better than this. I saw your grade in the last quiz and I expect more from you, ya Muhammad. What are these formulas called, ya Shabab? They are called lowering power. Yani, if you want to lower the power, use this formula. If you want to lower the power, use this formula. So here we are. We want to lower this power. I have cosine squared 2x. So what I will do, I will use this formula. This formula, it is cosine squared x. It is 1 plus cosine the double. So if you have here x, here you have 2x. So now when I have here 2x, cosine squared 2x will be 1 plus cosine what? Over 2. Cosine what, ya Muhammad?
4x.
4x, the double. So in general, ya Shabab, when you have cosine squared theta, it is 1 plus cosine the double of theta over 2. Whatever theta is. For example, if this theta is 5x, this will be 10x, and so on. So now I want to lower the power again. I will apply this formula again. Just I will apply this formula. But of course, here I will put the x. This will be 2 times 2x. It will be 4x. Now, خلاص. I have cosine as he wants, cosine of first power. That's it, done. I'm done. Just now it is a matter of algebra. It is a matter of -4 multiplied by a half, it's -8. 4 minus 1 over 8, it is 1 over 8. And here we are. So again, this one, it is equals to this. 1 over 8 minus 1 over 8 cosine for x equals to sine squared x cosine squared x. This is method number 1, ya Shabab. There is another method, but I don't know if you are going to think about it or not. So it is natural. This one is natural, ya Shabab. I think all of us will think about this one. Okay? But there is an easier one. But there is a trick at the beginning. Do you know that a squared plus b squared equals to a times b all squared? You know that, all of you. So what we will do in the second method, we will just write sine squared cosine squared, sine squared x, cosine squared x as sine x cosine x all squared. Is that right? Just we apply this power law or exponential law. Now, what is this? What is sine x cosine x, ya Shabab? I think you have seen this before, sine x cosine x. When we double it, 2 sine x cosine x is what? What is 2 sine x cosine x? What is 2 sine x cosine x?
Cosine double.
Cosine or sine?
Sine.
Ya Shabab, ittaqullah. It is sine 2x. Thank you, Abdul Hamid. Sine 2x, ya Shabab, is 2 sine x cosine x. So now, what will be sine x cosine x? We will just divide by what? By 2. So it will be 1 over 2 sine 2x. So now I will just replace sine x cosine x. I will put, instead of that, I will put a half of sine x to x. I just explain to you now from where it comes. This is this. Why? Because sine 2x is 2 sine x cosine x. Now, square, ya Shabab. So it will be 1 over 2 all squared. It will be 1 over 4, and this will be sine squared. This is not what we want. We want it to be in the first power of cosine. So what I will do, I will use the lowering power formula, this one. But here it is x and 2x. I will put instead of x 2x, and it will be 4x. So it will be 1 minus. لاحظوا يا شباب, in the case of sine it is 1 minus. In the case of cosine squared it is 1 plus. Now this 2x, this will be 4x. The power is 1 here. So it will be 1 minus cosine 4x over 2. Now we are done. Just multiply, expand, and here we are. So this is indeed, if you expand it, it is 1 over 8 minus 1 over 8 cosine 4x. Any question, ya shabab? Look at this old exam question and what you can tell me, which answer is the right answer. Look at this old exam question. 1 over 8 minus 1 over 8 cosine 4x equals to what? Equals to which one of these? What do you think? ريان محمد, ريان الرجيب.
موجود دكتور. هلا.
What do you think يا محمد؟ يا ريان which one? Any one of you?
ايه حنطلعها عشان ما اعتقد هتكون تام في النهاية.
يا
بس
شباب,
حنحل.
if you were with me here, if you were with me, look.
ايوه.
If you were with me, look. Here it is the same. So it is a natural. I expect from you to say A. It is the same, ya shabab. This one, we showed that this one equals to this one. This is example, the same example. So this is why, ya shabab, it is important to study the examples. So now what they did the opposite. They give you this, and they want this. So what you will do it like this, then like this, then like this, then like this. That's it. Let me show you. Assume that you don't know about this example. Forget about it. So what you will do? You will just remember here you have the double angle. You have here the angle is 4x, and here the angles are x. So I need to reduce the angle from 4x to 2x, then from 2x to x. What I will do, I will just remember this 1 minus cosine 2 theta over 2. What is this? Who can tell me what is 1 minus cosine 2 theta over 2?
Sine squared.
Sine squared what?
X.
Theta. I'm talking about 2 theta here in general. So I wish I have something like this. 1 minus cosine 4x over 2. I can do that, ya shabab. Here it is. Take 1 over 8 as a common factor. It will be 1 minus cosine 4x. Then multiply by 2 and divide by 2. Here we are. Now this is 1 over 4. What is 1 minus cosine 4x over 2? It will be sine squared the half. Here, if it is 2 theta, here it is theta. So this will be sine 2x. Now, what is sine 2x? What is sine 2x? It is 1 over 4 sine 2x. This is sine 2x all squared. This is sine 2x all squared. What is that? What is sine 2x, ya shabab? It is 2 sine x cosine x all squared. This is what? 1 over 4 times 2 to the power 2 is 4. Sine squared x cosine squared x. This will be cancelled and you will have sine squared x cosine squared x. That's it. So we have shown this, ya shabab, so easy. Let's take now another application or another form of the double angle formula and the lowering power. Now, if you remember, what is sine squared x? What is sine squared x, ya shabab? The lowering power formula. It is what? It is 1 minus cosine 2x over 2. Is that right? The same, of course, for cosine. Cosine squared x, it is 1 plus cosine 2x over 2. Now, what happens if you take the square root? What will happen if you take the square root of both sides? What you will have here? Here you will have the absolute value of sine x equals to square root of To get rid of the absolute value, you will just write positive or negative. So let me write it here at the beginning. Sine to x or sine x will be positive or negative the square root of this. So from the lowering power formula, we obtain this formula. Okay. Now, just this is the double. It's still double angle formula, but in the form of lowering power. Now, if you bought instead of 2x, bought u. This one, bought it u. What will be x? X will be u over 2. So here we will have positive or negative the square root of 1 minus cosine u over 2. And this will be sine u over 2. What is this? This is the name. The name is coming from here, the half-angle formula. So the half-angle formula, sine u over 2, it is positive or negative the square root of 1 minus cosine u over 2. If you apply it the same for cosine, you will have this. So this is, ya shabab, just a replacing, let me mention it here for you. This is just a replacing of x. We replace x by u over 2 in the lowering power formula. Okay? So for this one, number 1 and number 2, for sine and cosine, it is not difficult at all. It is just another way. Take the square root, and then replace x by u over 2. What do you want, ya Rayan? Please mute yourself, ya Rayan, if you don't want to ask or answer. Ya Muhammad.
Yeah, okay. Sounds
Yes. Okay. Now, ya Shabab, we want, what we want to focus on is this. How to obtain this? For you have sine u over 2. You have cosine u over 2. So you can find tan u over 2 by dividing sine u over 2 by cosine u over 2. It is not difficult. Here it is. If you put this over this, you will have this, the cancellation. You will just cancel. Now the question is how to obtain these. So let me just erase everything else, and I want you to focus on this. This is so important, how to obtain these formula, because they are interesting. The tangent of the half of the angle can be written in terms of sine and cosine. How to do that? This is interesting. So again, the basic idea is coming from tangent u over 2. It is sine u over 2 over cosine u over 2. So if you divide, you will get this. Now here you can do two things. You can multiply by 1 minus cosine u over 1 minus cosine u, the conjugate of the denominator, or you can multiply by 1 plus cosine u over 1 plus cosine u. I'm talking about inside the square root, let's say like that. So let's start with one of them, and I will leave the another one for you. You can do it with and obtain the same one if you want to know from where these are coming. Look, if you multiply by the conjugate of the denominator, look here, you will have 1 minus cosine squared, which is sine squared. So this will be now 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So under the square root, it will be the absolute value. Now this one is always a shabab positive. Do you know that? Because cosine u is between -1 and 1. If you multiply it by negative, it will still also between -1 and 1. Cosine u is between -1 and 1. If you multiply it by negative, it will still also between -1 and 1, but it will be just like that, greater than -1, less than or equals 1. If you add 1, it will still between 0 and 1. Now, and 2 طبعا here, if you add 2. It will be positive, shabab. 1 minus cosine u will be positive, non-negative for all x. For this one, sine u, we will put, instead of this, we will put positive or negative sine u, because it could be positive, it could be negative. And this, of course, will be cancelled with this, because sine u and tan u over 2, they have the same, always, they have the same sign. You can verify that. So what we have at the end, we have this. Tan u over 2 is 1 minus cosine u over sine u. Okay? We obtain this because we multiplied by 1 minus cosine from the beginning. If we multiply it by 1 plus cosine, we will get this. We will get sine u over 1 plus cosine u. And they are equivalent, ya shabab. Please go to 7.1. In 7.1, we showed that this equals to this. Let me remind you about this formula again. Tangent u over 2, it is 1 minus cosine u over sine u, or sine u over 1 plus cosine u. They are the same. And this one equals to this one. You can prove it. C 7.1. Now the question is, I think one of you, they may ask me how to recall this, how to remember it. I have a good way to memorize this, ya shabab. What is it? To make a connection between this and tangent in general. What is tangent u, ya shabab? What is tan u? It is sine u over cosine u. Is that right? You know all of this. All of you know that. Now, what is tangent u over 2? When it is a half of the angle, not the angle. It will be also sine u over cosine u, but plus 1. Here it is. So this is what I usually use. I remember that it is sine over cosine, but in the case of the half, it will be sine over 1 plus. If you want, if you want sine to be in the denominator, use this. So how to obtain this from this? Just move this to the denominator with multiply by the conjugate. It will be 1 minus cosine over sine. Let's now take an example. When you apply it, shabab, several times, you can apply it. Let's start with this. Find the exact value of sine 22.5. In other words, what is sine pi over 8? What you will do, you don't know. This is not well-known angle. What we will do, ya shabab, we will realize, you should realize that this is sine 45 over 2. Now, this is u over 2, u over 2. So this is u over 2. U here is sine u over 2. U is 45 degrees. U over 2 is 22.5. Now you will use the half angle formula. So this will be a shabab, sine u over 2 is positive or negative the square root. What do you think? Are we going here to use the positive or the negative? So this will be positive or negative the square root of 1 minus cosine u. What is u? It is 45 over 2. Positive or negative? What do you think, ya shabab? Rayyan Muhammad. Rayyan Muhammad, is it positive or negative?
Yes, doctor. It's positive.
Why?
The first quadrant.
Which angle? Which angle in the first quadrant? Which one you mean?
22.5.
Aha, excellent, Rayyan. You are right. Thank you. Yes. Here, positive or negative, it is about this, not about this, by the way. It is not about 45. It is about 22.5. Yes. Yes, both of them here, we are lucky because both of them are in the first quadrant, but in some situations it is not. طبعا now it is so easy. عبد الملك الدخيلي, عبد الملك. عبد الملك, are you with us?
Yes.
What is cosine 45, عبد الملك?
Square root of 2 over 2.
خلاص, that's it, done. We did solve. طبعا this is a matter of simplification. طبعا يا شباب, what they can give you this, how they can of course make several questions from this question. This example, for example, they can just give you this. What is sine? For example, sine 360, let's say 82.5. This is another question, and it is the same because this is the coterminal. The coterminal for this is sine 22.5, and you can continue the same. They can, of course, add by and make it negative. They can make it in the second quadrant, the fourth quadrant, for example. They can, of course, the same if you have sine, for instance, 157.5 degrees. This is in the second quadrant. And of course, to find the reference angle of it, you will just subtract it from 180. You will get 22.5. And the angle is, in this case, it is 60. In this case, it is in the second. Sine in the second is positive, so no, the same. If it is cosine, of course, it will be different. If it is cosine, this will be negative cosine, and so on. So there are many tricks that you can have. What is important for you is here is to use the angles, the half angle formula, the double angle formula. For the reference and the coterminals, you should already know about it. Now, tangent find tangent u over 2 if sine u is given for you, and u is in the second quadrant. Now, we know what is tan u over 2. Tan u over u over 2, it is 1 minus cosine over sine, or sine over 1 plus cosine, the angle. Now, I have sine, we have sine, here it is. How to find cosine? طبعا you can use the triangle يا شباب, or you can use the Pythagorean identity. طبعا here we will use cosine u equals to positive or negative the square root of 1 minus sine squared u. Now positive or negative يا شباب? Cosine u. Where is u? U is in the second. For cosine is what? Negative. So this is why we use negative. Cosine is negative in the second quadrant. Now you have sine, خلاص you can do it. طبعا you can use the triangle يا شباب. No problem. Here we are, this is cosine. I have sine, I have cosine. Now this is sine يا شباب, and this is cosine. What do you think now? Which one طبعا is better to be used? Identity number, formula number 1 or formula number 2? What do you think? And why? Rayyan or Rajab? Ya Rayyan, give me your opinion. 1 or 2 and why? You can use any one of them, ya shabab. It is not a big deal, but I want you to learn how to make your life easier, how to make it shorter.
I would say maybe the first one.
The first one. You are right. Why? Why you may say the first one? You are right, by the way. Who can give me give us the reason, ya shabab? Who knows why the first one is easier than the second one? Ya shabab, anyone? Muhammad al-Mu'taq, ya Muhammad. Amjad.
I think the first one,
Why the first one?
because I don't want the root in the denominator.
Allah يرضى عليك يا محمد. Allah يا محمد. Please يا محمد speak up. لا تحرمنا يا محمد. Yes, you're right. يا شباب لاحظوا ان الكوساين فيها radical. If the radical in the denominator, you need to rationalize. So here, look here. When the radical is in the numerator, no need to rationalize. That's it. It is ready. Please يا شباب, try to find it using the second one. You will be in trouble because you will get the same answer at the end, but you need to rationalize the denominator. So here, what I'm talking about, ya shabab, be smart, solve smartly, and think easily. Or the opposite way, indeed. Think smartly and solve, think easily and solve smartly. Now, the last part of this section, ya shabab, is about how to evaluate expressions that involve inverse trigonometric function. I think, ya shabab, you know how to find this sine, cosine, inverse x. This is not difficult. We did this in 6.5. What we did, ya shabab, there, do you remember? We put this equals to theta. So this will become sine theta. What is theta? Theta is cosine inverse x. Here, when we have double, like here. So here we want to write this in terms of x only. X between -1 and 1, because it is the domain of cosine inverse. This is so easy if we know what is the angle. Let me give you this easy example. Cosine inverse square root of 3 over 2. If it is like that, shabab, if you know what is x, it is so easy. This is sine 2, cosine inverse square root of 3 over 2. What is it, Amjad? Amjad, cosine inverse square root of 3 over 2.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Amjad, what is it? What is cosine inverse square root of 3 over 2 equals to what?
Is it 30?
What is 13?
30, not 13.
30 what? If you say 30, radian.
Oh, pi over 6.
If you want, you should say 30 degrees. Say pi over 6. خلاص يا شباب, grow up. Try to forget a little bit about degrees.
Okay.
30 degrees. or pi over 6. Yes, how to check? Because cosine pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2. So this is so easy. Instead of cosine inverse, it is pi over 6. Notice, ya shabab, that cosine inverse, the inverses are angles. So this will be sine pi over 3. What is sine pi over 3? Is a half. So this is so easy when you know what is x and you can find it. But if it is any x, مثلا, if it is sine 2 cosine inverse 3 over 4, you don't know what is this angle exactly. So what you will do, you will put this equals to theta. And this is what we will do now. It will be an angle. We don't know exactly what is this angle. And I don't need to know what is it exactly, because all what I need is its sine and its cosine. So ya shabab, what we will do, we will put this equals to theta. Now what will happen? This will be sine 2 theta. Well, sine 2 theta is 2 sine theta cosine theta from the double angle formula. The question now, what is sine theta? What is cosine theta? I know from here what is cosine theta. By the definition of the inverse, this means that cosine theta is x. Now sine theta will be positive or negative. It will be positive, the square root of 1 minus cosine square theta. Or from the triangle, you can use triangle. It is up to you. Now, of course, ya shabab, x here, if it is between negative and 1, if it is positive, because you know that cosine inverse is between 0 and pi. Do you remember the range of the inverse? Cosine inverse theta will be between 0 and pi. But because here, if x is positive, it is in the first. If it is negative, it is in the second. Now, this is sine theta, shabab. Sine theta is x. Cosine theta, I mean. Cosine theta is x. Sine will be the opposite over the hypotenuse, which will be square root of 3. So this is sine, and this is cosine. And we are done because we write it now in terms of x only. We are done, ya shabab. Let's summarize. Now, we started with the double angle formulas. From where these double angles formulas coming from, ya shabab? Do you remember? I told you, if you forget them, from where to remember them? From the addition from 7.2. 7.2 from the addition formula for formulas for sine and cosine and tangent. From this, we have the lowering power formula. How to lower the power, ya shabab? Use this one to obtain this one. Use this formula to obtain this formula. Use this and this to obtain the formula for tangent, and use these three formulas to obtain the half angle formula. Just replace x by u over 2. Replace 2x by u, then take the square root of both sides. Let's take this exercise, ya shabab. We still have time for that. Please, ya shabab, think about this. How to solve this one. Here we have sine theta is negative 3 over 5. Theta between pi and 3 pi over 2. So where is theta, ya shabab? In which quadrant? From here.
Quadrant 2.
2, ya shabab, ittaqullah. Between pi and 3 pi over 2, it is in the third. Be careful. وكمان الساين negative. So we are in the third. Okay, this is good. This is step number 1. I have sine, so you can also draw triangle here. This is theta. This is negative 3. This is 5. This will be what, ya shabab? Negative 4. We are in the third. You know that. Okay. Now, how to deal with this? Cotan pi over 2 minus theta over 2. You can write it like what? You can write it, طبعا you know, ya shabab, that what is tan? What is tan x minus y? You know that 1 over tan is cotan. So you can use this formula. And you know how to continue. This will be tan x minus tan y over 1 minus tan x minus tan y. Here 1, this will become here. So it will become like this. 1 minus tan x tan y. You can just put x equals to pi over 2 and y equals to theta over 2. But this will be so long, ya shabab. It will be very long. There is a better and nicer trick to be used here. Who can tell me what is it, and he will get a bonus? What we can do about this, ya shabab? cotan pi over 2 minus theta over 2, it is equals to what? In a better and easier way, better than this one. Here we used the addition formula, or the subtraction formula for tangent. No one? This, yeah, Shabab, do you remember what is this? What is cosine? What is cosine pi over 2 minus x? What is cotan pi over 2 minus x? What is it, Shabab? What is cosine pi over 2 minus x? You just have finished the midterm exam. What is cosine pi over 2 minus x? Sultan. Yeah, Sultan.
Cotan pi over 2 minus x, I think that it is equal to tan x.
Yes, so this will be tan what? This will be tan what? Yeah, Sultan.
Tan theta over 2.
Theta over 2, Allah yarda alayk. Yes, ya Sultan, you're right. Excellent. So this is tan theta over 2, ya Shabab. Cotan pi over 2 by using the cofunction, idea. Now, what is tan theta over 2? You know what is tan theta over 2. Tan theta over 2, it is sine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. وإحنا عندنا الساين وعندنا الكوساين. Just look how easy it is. The answer is -3. So easy, ya Shabab. Let me just in the last minute mention the last example, and it is so easy to what we have before, similar. Cosecant negative theta, what is this? This is negative cosecant theta because it is odd. So this means that cosecant theta is negative 5 over 3. And this means that sine theta is what, ya Shabab? Sine is the reciprocal, so it will be -3 over 5. We have sine theta. He said that sine theta is -3 over 5, tan is negative. Theta is between 0 and 2 pi. So where is theta, Shabab? In which quadrant theta? Sine negative with tan negative. It is in the 4th quadrant. Okay. Now what we want? We want cosine to theta. How to find cosine theta over 2, ya Shabab? Just in a minute. Cosine theta over 2. What is it? By the half angle formula. It is positive or negative, the square root of 1 plus cosine the double theta. The double of theta over 2. It is. Now the question is positive or negative, Shabab? What do you think? Cosine theta over 2, positive or negative? Theta is in the 4th.
Positive.
Theta over 2, theta is between 2 pi and 3 pi over 2. If you divide by 2, where will be theta? Theta over 2. It will be where? It will be less than pi, greater than 3 pi over 4. So this angle will be in the 2nd quadrant.
Negative.
In the 2nd quadrant, cosine is negative or positive?
Negative, doctor.
Negative. So we will take the negative part. So this means that this answer is impossible. This answer is impossible. And of course, now find cosine theta. You have sine. How to find cosine? You will draw it in the 4th quadrant. This is theta. This is -3. This is 5. This will be 4. So this will be 4 over 5. And simplify, you will have, of course, the answer is A. The right answer is A. I'll stop recording here. If you have any questions, Shabab, I will be glad to answer them.